Hi, it's Lee, and welcome to the Tesla Economist. Now, to me, this seems like a really big deal, yet I'm not hearing many people talking about it at all. To me, it's all quite simple. How did Tesla expand further? What's the major limiting factor? It's still cell supply. Obviously, we expected a massive injection of cells from the 4680 production. However, it still seems to be going slower than anticipated. Although we just heard that Texas managed to produce 5,000 Model Ys in a week, which is something. It actually means Texas hit volume production. Yes, Tesla hit volume production again on another factory, something that all other BEV manufacturers are struggling with, aside from some basic models that BYD produce. Remember how difficult Elon said it is to hit volume production, and doing it so profitably is nearly impossible. But thanks to the YouTuber Woo-Wah, he has shown just how close the new CATL factory is to Tesla's Shanghai factory. It's practically next door. I remember saying last year that these two factories were about 2 hours' drive from one another when I checked their locations on Google Maps. But it would seem I was incorrect in that assessment, as this photo demonstrates. They're next door to one another. The new CATL factory is supposed to have an annual capacity of 80 gigawatt hours, with rumours that it could be closer to 100. And according to some Chinese news sources, the factory was meant to supply Tesla, although of course nothing official. Except now, seeing how close a proximity the two factories are, then I think we can use some common sense to speculate that it's obviously going to supply Tesla. Okay, possibly not 100% of cells, but maybe. Now, as many of you know, CATL have been doing a great job when it comes to cells and batteries, and have created a new cell and a new battery. The cell is their M3P cell, which is a hybrid of a ternary cathode and LFP cathode. Bottom line, it's more energy dense at the same cost as LFP per kilowatt hour, implying it can generate a longer range for the same weight and volume of battery. In addition to that, CATL created their chill-in battery, which is structural, but rather than using cell-to-vehicle integration like the 4680 cells and BYD's blade cells, it's using the cooling ribbons to support the structure to get the same result. Therefore, I'm going to make the possible assumption that this new CATL factory will indeed be for the new cells and batteries, which will in turn supply Tesla's Shanghai operation. Which, if we do the numbers, then Shanghai only consumes about 50 to 60 gigawatt hours a year of LFP cells as it is. That would leave a difference of around 20 to 30 gigawatt hours too. Well, what if those cells were sent to Fremont and used there to replace the current rear-wheel drive Model 3? Okay, well actually perhaps not just the rear-wheel drive Model 3, as we now have the long-range Model 3 return, with 33 fewer miles of range than the previous version, yet it's still referred to as the long range. Presumably because Tesla are trying to find more of a sweet spot at a lower price point, with lower associated costs. Now, everyone is jumping on speculating what cell type this car is using. The only thing we know is that the cells are likely coming from China, due to the tax credit offered for the new vehicle. Now, here's my theory. This new Model 3 long range is going to be the first Model 3 Highland, and it may indeed contain the new battery and cells from CATL. The new Model 3 will likely start low in quantity, and that is also some rumours we heard too, so it might make sense to release it in a higher value Model 3. I mean, for all we know, they could also launch a long-range version in Shanghai too, but we aren't seeing it listed on the website in China yet. Anyway, I could go on and on about the Highland, but I'd rather talk about Tesla's growth. So this new CATL factory has enough cells to supply Shanghai and Fremont, and potentially the long-range and rear-wheel drive versions, and perhaps even change over the Model Y long-range to these cells offered too in Fremont. Maybe offer it as a rear-wheel drive version, and then use those extra spare 2170 cells in Texas. Tesla have options of how to reconsolidate the batteries in their models, and likely to do so in a way that will reduce cost, and possibly reduce range somewhat too, but this range will match the lower price points too. But what about all the LFP cells that CATL is supplying from a little further up the road from Shanghai? Well, where does Tesla need LFP cells? In their energy storage business. This would free up 80 gigawatt hours of LFP cells, which could be used in their two megapack factories that have 80 gigawatt hour capacity in total. I mean, that is a little coincidental, don't you think? Tesla have two 40 gigawatt hour factories that need cells to ramp up fairly soon. That's a lot of cells, and they have to come from somewhere. I'm just saying I think it would make more sense for Tesla to use the latest CATL cells with the latest technology and efficiency in vehicles rather than energy storage. To me, that is obvious. So in reality, this new factory is going to increase supply for the energy business whilst offering more efficient sales for the auto business. So where's the growth for the rest of the auto business coming? Well, we have Tesla's 4680 cells, of course, but we have discussed them at length in the past and just hope that eventually they will ramp up properly in the next few years. Then we have the other 4680 cells from the factory in Nevada to come, and also rumours of a CATL Tesla LFP factory going into Texas with 100 gigawatt hours of supply, which I assume is going to cater to the Mexico factory, as I can't think of any other cell supply large enough for that, unless in the meantime they ramp down the Megapack factories. Oh, and it doesn't stop there. We have Panasonic with their 4680 cells too. We've just heard that they're facing some delays, but it's still coming. It will have a higher energy density than Tesla's current 4680 cells, and should be a higher energy density than the 2170 cell too, but at a lower cost. Now, this is Panasonic's version of the 4680, which means no tabless design or dry battery electrode. It's just a different form factor using current manufacturing techniques with known and proven technologies. In other words, less risk of it being delayed, at least too much further, compared to Tesla's version of the 4680 cell, which last we saw were not even using silicon in the anode. I think of these Panasonic cells as somewhat of a backup for Tesla if they have ongoing issues with their in-house 4680 cell and dry battery cathode. The Cybertruck is dependent on a high energy-dense 4680 cell. If Tesla's current 4680 cells can't even be LFP on energy density, it's not going to be big enough battery to give the Cybertruck the range it needs. And I'm always very unpopular whenever I say anything that can be perceived as negative about the Cybertruck. But I think the current 4680 cells would only provide enough range for about 350 miles for the Cybertruck, possibly less, unless Tesla double-layered the cells, but I don't think that would be in Tesla's ethos. But the Texas 4680 cells may have higher energy density, and perhaps we hit closer to 420 miles of range. I mean, this car is a serious headliner. It really should have the most range out of all other electric pickup trucks. It will need longer range due to the fact that so many owners will use it for towing. Whether it will hit 500 miles like we were told, I guess we'll find out eventually. My point is that when Panasonic are able to ramp up their 4680s, then that should serve the Cybertruck with sufficiently energy-dense cells for a long-range Cybertruck. The Cybertruck is going to be a big step for Tesla. I think it will eventually be Tesla's most profitable vehicle, maybe $20,000 profit per vehicle when at volume production, perhaps aside from the semi-truck, which we're told won't happen until next year, but assign as much weight as you feel to the confidence of that timeline. And Panasonic are estimating to hit volume production between around April and September 2024 now. So that could time in well enough with the Cybertruck ramp, and possibly Panasonic may even have enough cells from their pilot line for Cybertruck production this year. I mean, we are only anticipating around a few thousand units of Cybertruck this year, so perhaps only about 3 gigawatt hours of cells would even be required. And even if Texas is still producing the lower energy dense 4680 cells that are used in the Y, then Panasonic could supply high energy dense 4680 cells for the Cybertruck. Or perhaps they could even use 2170 cells in the meantime. I think if the Cybertruck was launched without being the longest range pickup truck, then it wouldn't look good. We expect Tesla to smash all records. Plus, I'm expecting the initial price tag to be quite high, possibly up to around $120,000, about where the Plaid was at one stage. And let's face it, the Cybertruck is a much more anticipated vehicle than the Plaid. Look, in my opinion, Tesla has done very little lately. It hasn't been showing much in the way of new innovation. BYD has arguably done more over the last year. But do you really believe Tesla are just sitting idly by letting everyone else catch up? Something's got to happen. I mean, it's Tesla, right? We just counted about an additional 350 gigawatt hours of annual cell capacity to come in the next few years. That's about 3 times the cells Tesla consumed last year. They've got to go somewhere. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.